Good morning and welcome to Morning Java, brought to you as always by our friends at the Get-Go Cafe and Market, where when Taylor orders from her Giant Eagle app, and it is a Giant Eagle app that she
Mm.
used, she just pulls up to the side of the store, rolls down the window, and they bring it out to her. Can't complain.
Yeah, you just have to call. They can bring your milkshakes out to the car for you. It's really easy.
Can't beat that. The Penguins had a couple of tough decisions made, unfortunately easier, because they're the only team that could possibly sustain injuries during a pandemic. In losing Dominic Simone, as we've known for a bit now, to a surgery, and then Nick Bjugstad this week. And yet again, that leaves us looking at the lines. To me, Taylor, that puts Connor Sheary definitely back in on a third line with Jared McCann at center, where I think we can agree that he's more comfortable and more effective, and Patrick Hornqvist on the right wing. The rest of the lines pretty much shake out the way we kind of expected. What about you? What are you seeing here?
Yeah, I mean, I just wrote about my picks for the lines a week ago. So after we knew Simone was out, and before we knew Bjugstad was out, I didn't have Bjugstad in the first place. So it doesn't really change anything for me. I mean, I had Zucker, Crosby, Gensel, because we know Gensel's going to start with Crosby. We know
Yep.
Russ is going to start with Malkin. I had Marlowe on that wing. We know that Aston Reese, Bluger, and Tanev are together, so that's my fourth line. My third line, though, I had McCann, Rodriguez, and Hornqvist, because otherwise you don't have any right-handed centerman. And I mean, Rodriguez plays PK, and he looked good towards the end of the last 2-3 games of the season.
Yeah, you might have something there, because the thing about Sheary and automatically slotting him into that the way that I did is that he's not a PK guy.
Yeah.
And he's not going to be able to jump in at center if he's needed, if another body is needed, if a right-handed draw is needed in a certain situation. I've not seen anywhere near enough of Evan Rodriguez really at any position, but certainly not at wing, to know that he could be that guy. But I would think that if your line comes together, they know what they've got in Jared McCann at center, so most likely he'd be that guy, or they'd have the two of them kind of.
Because Evan Rodriguez can play center and both wings. So you can still have McCann as your center, Rodriguez as your wing, and if you do need a right-handed centerman, Rodriguez can step in.
Yeah, and the tiebreaker here, and I talk about this all the time, is PK. If those guys, if Jacques Martin can get enough guys to stock his unit and to make sure that he's not putting in particular extra pressure on Rust or Gensel, his top two wingers. And that's important here too, because those guys, especially Rust's a frontline killer. That might be something that goes into it. With Connor Sheary, I gotta admit, in watching these highlights from the replays of the 2016 and 2017 Cup, I think we forget how big a role Connor Sheary played in both of those championships.
Yeah, he was also on the first line.
Sure, he was, but
yeah.
he could theoretically be on the first line with this team, because let's just say Jason Zucker goes down, or Jake Jake goes down, or whatever. You have Sheary jumping in. Maybe that's part of the thought process too. I don't know. It's bottom line is, if you look at literally the bottom line, meaning the guys who aren't playing, you're talking still about either Sheary or Rodriguez plus Lafferty, Angelo. There's depth. There's still depth, even losing two guys that might have been in there. You didn't think Bjugstad had a chance to play?
No, and I mean, he only played 13 games this season, so it's not like it's hard to imagine what the lineup would have looked like without him. 13 games you saw from him, it's not like he showed anything that made him have a clear spot in the lineup, I think. And back to what you were saying with Sheary, I think he could fill in it, one of the top two lines of what you were saying, if Zucker goes down, whoever. But if we're because what we're talking about now pretty much is who's going in on the third line. I'd rather have Rodriguez there than Sheary. But I think Sheary could step in if he has to.
Yeah. No, I mean, he could. I guess the point I was going to make with Bukestad is that he's a guy that if you think back to last year in the playoffs against the Islanders, where he, Hornqvist, and McCann formed that outstanding line, where they were forechecking like crazy. But in fairness, as you point out, he hadn't played much this year, and to expect that he all of a sudden would have just snapped his fingers and been at some high level would have been asking a lot. So one way or another, it's a lot of depth.
Well, it's not as much of a depth as it could have been if they had some
Nope.
abuse. Because I mean, if you're looking at the Black Aces now, who they're going to have, Rutherford said Adam Johnson, Phil Verone. That's not exactly.
I like Adam Johnson.
I like Adam Johnson too, and Adam Johnson and Phil Verone. I mean, I think DePauli should be in that mix too, but it's not as good as having.
No, it's not. It's not. But not playing is not playing. That's still pretty good depth. My guess is that it'll be better than most Eastern Conference teams.
Poland and Ligre can be in that group too. They're eligible to be brought in.
I hadn't thought about that. Jack Eichel made some noise in Buffalo. It's not the first time he's done it. It probably won't be the last time for however long he's there. And at the same time, I listened to the audio of it when he said that he was unhappy with what happened to the Sabres this year, that, you know, they haven't made the playoffs 9 years in a row. All 5 years that he's been there, reminded of a couple of things. One is that, you know, the Penguins didn't make the playoffs the first 5 years of Mario's career. And it's still, to me, a miracle that the Penguins were able to keep him without a squawk. You know what I mean? This was the best player who ever lived, the most talented player. And he could have just picked his spot and said, that's it, I'm out of here. Now, he did complain behind the scenes, and he ended up getting quite the supporting cast, to say the least. But the Penguins have never had an issue like that with Crosby or Malkin. They obviously ended up having one with Jagr. That was for very different reasons. But what an amazing ride it's been, hasn't it? With Crosby and Malkin for a dozen years now. For those guys, not a single anything from them.
Yeah, I mean, they also have each other, and the Penguins made the playoffs, you know, not long after, you know, they both came around. Jack Eichel doesn't have anyone like that. Jack Eichel doesn't have a Malkin. It's not like, you know, I mean, you see like Connor McDavid, you see what the Oilers have done around him.
Eventually.
You bring in Draisaitl. I mean, he had to wait longer than, and I mean, he spoke about being frustrated too when, you know, the Oilers are missing the playoffs every year, and now he's tired of losing. And now, I mean, you see what they've done. The Sabres just don't seem to be on that same path. So, I mean, I think but we don't know what would happen if the Penguins would have followed the same path as the Sabres.
Well, yeah, although with Sid's personality alone, you have a hard time picturing him, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he would
get me out of here.
No.
I'm not criticizing Eichel. I totally get where Eichel is. No, you're right. They don't have a Malkin, but they did draft an elite defenseman in Rasmus Dahlin, who has not disappointed. They have some really good young up-and-coming talent, Casey Middlestead in particular, who came up during the season. Jason Botterill feels really strongly about what's up there. But 5 years of that, and then 9 years. And then the 9 years is by the way, one of the longest streaks in modern NHL history of missing the playoffs. It's not easy to miss the NHL field of 16, 9 years in a row. Makes it that much worse up there because the fans are so angry, and the fans want everybody fired, and the fans actually up there do care. It's not some, you know, disinterested market. It just we never saw anything like that with these guys, and I guess the Penguins are lucky, like you said, that they built something around Sid in a relative hurry. You know, especially once Mario was forced to retire, they added real pieces very quickly.
I mean, because they had Letang coming up, Fleury coming up, all around the same time. That's your core, and you knew that was going to be
Jordan Staal.
Yeah. I mean, they had that. So I mean, the Penguins, there was hope there when at least when the Penguins were bad when Crosby came in. There's hope. I don't know if the Sabres have that same kind of hope. I mean, when the last game I covered of the season in Buffalo, that was, you know, their return, Rodriguez and Sherry's return to Buffalo for the first time since the trade. And Rodriguez, when he was talking, a lot of the Sabres media was asking him questions, and, you know, about his time there, and he said just like the vibe in the locker room in the Penguins now compared to the Sabres. It's like the Penguins, no matter what situation they're in a game, they know they expect to win.
To win, yeah.
And the Sabres never were like that. It was just more down there. It's like they don't have hope there. So I mean, I can't blame. I don't think that's a personality thing with Eichel that he's
culture.
more outspoken.
Some of it is culture. Somebody has to come in, and that had to happen too a little bit, even in Sid's early years with Bill Guerin, where somebody had to come in and not so much crack the whip. That's not really Billy's personality, but it was more about just changing the culture. He was an upbeat guy. He wanted everybody to speak up. He wanted to create something, and Eichel wears that C up there,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know enough about the Buffalo Sabres to know if he's that guy. I don't know if Sid was the right kid at the time to be wearing the C. Remember?
Mm-hmm.
Like, really, he was the youngest captain, I believe, in NHL history.
Up until McKinnon?
McKinnon might have passed him, yeah, and of course
by
now
like a few days, yeah.
Yeah, and that's because, but Sid maybe kind of led the way with that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But you see the patience. This is my broader point here. When you get drafted in the NHL and you're Alexis Lafreniere, who's going to end up going in all likelihood to the Red Wings or the Senators or somebody else that's bad, it takes time.
Mm-hmm.
And it hurts. And I honestly, Taylor, I wonder if it doesn't hurt the NHL too, because when you see a number 1 or number 2 overall pick in the NFL, they just come in and play, and they do have a chance to make an impact right away. And you can surround them quicker because of the salary cap with talent. In the NHL, they just get buried for 4 or 5 years. Nobody around sports knows who Jack Eichel is. I don't know how many people know who Connor McDavid is.
No, I was going to say, especially in America, I don't think the average person knows Connor McDavid. Probably a lot of people didn't know Sidney Crosby in the early years either, even that being an American market. Yeah, I mean, back to what you're saying with Crosby getting the C early, but they also knew that, he's going to be the guy for a long time. So that's why he got the C. I mean, they expect that with Eichel too, because he signed through 2026, I think.
For a lot of money.
Yeah, $10 million a year. He just needs a supporting cast around him, hopefully like what the Oilers did to build around Connor McDavid.
Yeah, well, he's got Dominic Cahoon now, so.
Yeah.
Speaking of comparing the NHL to other sports, there appears to be at least a better than reasonable chance that Major League Baseball won't get it together in 2020. And my own thought on that is if they don't get it together in 2020, they won't in 2021 either. So we could go a really, really long time without having baseball. I don't think that matters much in Pittsburgh toward this particular argument, because in Pittsburgh, I think there's data to support that hockey's a very clear number 2, with baseball being a 3. That makes it unusual in the United States, but could that change? I mean, I'm not purposely leaving the NBA out. I understand where the NBA is well over the NHL, but I just think in general, is there an opportunity here for the NHL to capitalize on some fans, or are they not the same demographic at all?
I think if moving forward, I mean, if they can change just the timeline of the season, because I mean, right now it's October to June, they are competing with the NBA and the NFL. In that, I mean, because what we're talking about starting in January now and running, as late as they need to for next season.
The next season, yeah.
If they can do that, I mean, if the NHL can find a way to play into the summer, they're competing with baseball and the WNBA, and I mean, I think the hockey going up against the NBA, that's tough, but like on the current timeline they run, but going up against like the MLB directly, I think like if hockey were to play in the summer, I think that would be good for getting more fans, because they don't have to compete with the NFL and the NBA.
Head to head, I think you'll see an immediate impact. If you see Stanley Cup playoffs, and of course NBA playoffs, right around the time you would be seeing the opening of NFL training camps, and there's no baseball, like no baseball at all. This gets down to more of a business principle of market share. Um, Hockey would and could come in and swoop in and take eyeballs, take sponsorships, including in Pittsburgh, I might add.
Yeah.
I mean, Pittsburgh's not a huge city. There's 3 teams here, and people don't realize how much they compete with each other for
Mhm.
sponsorships. They're not all buds all the time. That the NHL could take a lot of that market share, but also this is kind of what I'm talking about. There's only so much room in your brain or your heart for passion for a sports team or a certain kind of sport or certain players. And if baseball's just gone, Taylor, and you're just a sports fan and your buddy shows you hockey, hey, this
Mhm.
is pretty cool. That's kind of what I'm talking about here. I just think it could make a big difference.
Yeah, and I mean, hockey tends to do better with like a younger demographic. And
Why is that? That's
it's
always been the case. Why
I
is
think
that?
it's faster. Um, I mean, if we're comparing it to baseball, I think a lot of people my age are not baseball fans. I think people my age like going to the park, drinking a flat beer and an expensive hot dog.
You're not watching a
Uh,
game.
yeah, I mean, like I know people like there are people around my age that are actual baseball fans, but like I don't know, like growing up in Baltimore, none of my friends were really big into baseball. I probably had more friends that were into the Caps and the Orioles and were not even in DC. So I think, especially like targeting a younger demographic, um, I think the NHL would do better.
Well, how do
Game,
they do that? What are they missing on that now? Because let's be honest here. You're right that they do appeal to the younger demographic, but the data also shows that that's extremely regional. It's only in the markets where there's an actual franchise.
mhm.
And at some point or other, hockey has to find a way to have its own LeBrons or Steph Currys or whoever else who have that broader visibility.
Yeah, and part of it too is tough because a lot of kids don't grow up playing hockey because it's very expensive to play.
Expensive, yeah.
Um, Whereas most kids grow up playing baseball, soccer, that kind of stuff. I don't know. That's something where if the NHL could do more, like with like the youth levels. I know like teams do a lot with that. Like the Penguins have like the learn to play thing. If
And
you
the
get,
decks and everything,
yeah,
yeah.
you have to get more kids into it.
Yep.
So that's I think a step the NHL needs to take, and um, they're trying to take steps with making it a more diverse game for I mean both players and fans. Everything they do for hockey is for everyone, but that's not enough. So they could do steps with that. If you read like the stuff like Akeem Alou's been working with the NHL with making the game more welcoming for everybody.
Yeah, for
Because if
anybody who
you
doesn't
look
know,
at the
he's the one he was the victim of some horrific racial remarks by by
but
what was his name?
Bill
Peters.
Peters,
Bill
but
Peters,
if
who's
you
since
read,
been banned to Siberia, I believe, for real. Like,
he's in the KHL, yeah. But no, but I mean, if you read what Akeem Alou wrote, it didn't start with Peters, it didn't end with Peters.
right?
It starts when you're a kid playing youth hockey.
Yeah, but like you're saying though, it can't just be talking about inclusion. There also has to be real financing and real programs set up so that you're getting everybody involved, um, of not just races here, but we're talking about classes too, because the number one thing that has always kept hockey participation down is like you said, the enormous expense compared to other sports, certainly
Yeah.
soccer.
I mean, I
You just
think
get a
it's,
ball and run around.
yeah, the most expensive sport to play.
Oh yeah,
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 but I
absolutely.
mean, all the equipment, and then you figure you start young, like
Well,
you have to
and
be switching out your equipment a
yeah, and the
lot.
part that ends up being the most expensive is the sheet of ice. I mean,
Yeah.
meaning somebody's still got to drive you, and you're looking for hours at 4 o'clock in the morning or whatever to get out there.
Hmm.
It's a different world.
You have to
There's a
have
lot
ice.
of
Yeah, you have to have ice time. You have to live near a rink, and a lot
here
of places just don't have the rinks. I mean,
right,
you
but
look at.
here
I mean,
again,
Pittsburgh didn't until Mario came around didn't have a lot of rinks around.
had 6 actually in all of
Yeah.
Western Pennsylvania before Mario came around. But at the same time, this swings me back to the original point: is that baseball, if it just flatlines, if it just disappears, there's room for everybody, including hockey.